This is my Leatherman Rogue Wave. This has undergone a transformation from the original Leatherman. I've done quite a bit to it, and just recently I added the serrated Guthook. But before that, let's go over some of the things in a little bit more detail as an overview of the things that I've done to this tool. So first of all, we find on this side, I have added a donk pocket clip off of Amazon. This is the Topo edition. Then I took some heat shrink and I added the Firefly, which is a ferro rod designed for the Victorinox, and also a pair of Victorinox tweezers. And essentially I just use this heat shrink. I put the two tools on here, heated it, and shrunk it down so it's a very snug fit. Now, one of the things I've noticed, I've gone through two of these Firefly ferro rods, is they have a tendency to break right at the tip. I believe because this is fairly flexible material, and when they bang against something, they have a tendency to break. So I am planning to try to design a new case for this, maybe have it 3D printed, and we'll see how that goes, but that should take care of that issue, I hope. Now, the next thing I did was, or one of the other things we noticed I did, was I added dragon grip tape on the outside right here of the Leatherman Wave to sort of give it a Leatherman Charge look, and I sort of like it. It's all right. Something to make it a little different. I first tried some grip tape like for stairs, and it was basically like sandpaper, so it began shredding my jeans pockets, so that did not work out very well. But this phone grip tape actually is pretty soft, but yet it does add some texture to the multi-tool as well. And then one of the other things I did on the outside of this was I added a little notch. So I took off these right here. Once you unscrew it, you can actually take off this piece, and then I just made a notch, and the notch allows you to put a Victorinox ink pen in here, and then I added a little tape to hold it in place. I think I got the notch a little bit too big, but it allows the ink pen to sit in here, so inside the handle. So that is another thing I did. Now let's talk about the outside tools on this Leatherman Wave. One of the biggest things I changed was I added a bit driver. So this is off the Gerber Armbar Slim. The Gerber Armbar itself, Armbar driver, has a bit driver, and the metal hangs down a little bit. It's a little chunkier, where the Armbar Slim is pretty much flat on this side and then is able to rest against the frame. But I did have to cut out a fair amount of metal right here, and it definitely takes some getting used to and some trial and error. This is my first time, so it looks a little bit rough, but it didn't turn out as bad as I was afraid it might. On the opposite side, I wanted large scissors, and so I added a pair of Victorinox, and these are the 91mm scissors. So there's two different versions. I think these might be the older versions of the scissors, but I found these off of eBay, and I was able to put those in. They don't require hardly any modification. You do have to grind a little bit off the bottom here to make it fit against the frame. And then I think I had to make it flat a little bit to hit this post, but there's not a ton of modification. But because these scissors are so thick, I've had a lot of problems with this, the pivots rather, coming loose, because I would move this and then the pivot would unloosen, and then I would move this and it would get super tight. So the caveat is I took this apart, and then I didn't put any thread locker because I'm not completely done with the tool, and I didn't want to make it unmanageable to open again, or a lot harder in case I need to swap tools around. So I eventually broke down. I did buy some thread locker, this blue thread locker. This is the super glue version. And I went ahead and I put that in there, and it definitely works a lot better now. Definitely a lot better. I still feel like the whole pivot moves when I open the scissors. The arm bar, the pivot stays in place, but for some reason I need to do a little bit more adjustment with the scissors, and I probably will need to get red thread locker when I'm completely done with this tool. So on the other side, I actually got, and this will be very hard to get out because I have a comb in place, and this is a key port, or not a key port, a Klecker comb, stowaway tool, and I really need to thin this down so that it fits better in the handle. But it does fit to some extent, and I've made it, it's not made for this, but I've made it fit in this T-shank exchanger. This T-shank exchanger I got off eBay, and this was a more expensive version rather. I think it was about $55 or so. And then this just fit right in. It was very easy to do. And the comb, I had to do obviously some grinding to get it to fit. But that is what I've been experimenting. And then I have actually used some of the implements from the saw, rather, I believe, or the file, from the Surge T-shank adapter, and then you just have to cut it down to fit. So, because the implements are too long, but I have used that as well. Now, on the other side, we have this brand new tool I have added, which is the tool similar to the Leatherman Charge. This is the serrated knife with a Guthook. Guthook works really good. I had a lawn or weed eater rather wire, well, the plastic string I needed to cut, and I was able to cut it with this Guthook very, very effectively. I was able to open my son's birthday presents with this serrated knife, and that worked very well. This comes off of eBay, and it's very reasonable. It's about $40. You can get it for the blade if you wait long enough. And this, it does have some Damascus-like styling on it, but it is definitely just etching from what I can tell. I do not think this is by any stretch of the imagination Damascus. And they said it's supposed to be a special blade, VG10 I think, but I think it's just normal blade steel or under normal because it's so cheap. But it's something fun to try, and I bought this knowing it probably wasn't what they advertised, sort of as a service, I suppose, to you, the viewer, so that you can be more informed when you buy this. So it is essentially just bright etching on here, and it looks sort of neat, but it definitely does not look like real Damascus. But so far it's held up fine, and again, the cutting hook seems fairly sharp on mine. So those are the old tool, or the outside tools rather. This is the Hacktical thumb stud, if I didn't mention that already. And then on the inside, the Leatherman Wave, when I bought it, was already modded because at the top here it was ground down. So that is not something I did. And then on the inside, I actually added these cutters, which also are supposed to be Damascus. And these go for about $17 or so. But one of the things I've noticed is they're a lot thicker than the original Leatherman, and they don't work near as well. And then one of the things I'm just noticing is it looks like they're blocking the pliers from closing completely. So I'm not sure if I didn't install them right or what, but I think I'll definitely need to take those off because it looks like I can't even completely close the pliers anymore. So I definitely would not buy the cutters. Don't recommend those. Plan to put these original Leatherman cutters back in. Definitely seem far better. And unfortunately, this seems to be a waste. Perhaps they could be ground down, I guess. But I don't want to go to the trouble, and they weren't that expensive. But unfortunately, that probably will be a loss. Now, as far as the rest of the tool, I haven't done a whole bunch or hardly anything, I guess, at all with the inside. I did try to make some time ago the large screwdriver a chisel to, I don't know if it's that successful. I'm not a huge fan of that, and I may swap this out and just leave this screwdriver, but I did do that. And I do plan to add a scalpel to the inside. Kristen Van Patten off of Etsy is making a scalpel holder for the Leatherman Wave, and as I understand it, it fits right here, replaces this tool, and it sits right beside the bit driver. And so I will probably try to move this tool perhaps to the other side. So we'll see. I'll probably do some switching around, but most of the modding on the Leatherman Wave, I believe, is done. I've got a couple more things to iron out, to fix, but a lot of this is done. Hope you've enjoyed this video. I tried to leave a bunch of links below, and I hope this has helped you on your modding journey. I'll see you in the next video.